Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic podcast, a space to honor women's rites of passage stories. From menarche to menopause, the initiations of womanhood all live within our wombs. Through our first bleed to our last, we come to know ourselves more deeply. This is a platform to reclaim the sacredness of all of it. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, birth keeper and women's coach, specializing in womb wellness and hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling? Let's dive in. All right. Hey, women. Welcome back to the podcast. We are back after an impromptu 2-week break in which I was hosting the first ever Women's Nourished and Thriving retreat here in Peru. If you're watching video, you can probably tell by my surroundings and my attire that I am not Hawaii anymore. I am in a totally different climate. It's this mountainous, sacred valley of Peru. It gets quite cold. It's 3:45 p.m. here on Wednesday, May 28th, as I'm recording this episode for next week. And at this time, the sun's going to set in about 2 hours, and it gets quite cold. So I'm bundled up, take a hot shower after this, and yeah, just really grateful to be here in this incredibly special place. When I landed at the airport here, I had this instant feeling that something transformational was going to happen here. And yeah, there's been quite a lot of transformation happening here already. First, with the retreat, it just went so much better than I or Laura or any of the women who attended could have ever imagined. I mean, we had high hopes for it, like we really put so much effort and love into creating this retreat and so much intentionality. That's really Laura and I's big thing is intentionality. That's why we created our intentional Maidenhood program. And so each step of this retreat was created with deep intentionality, from making sure that there's enough food with enough protein, with bone broth hot chocolate every morning, with intentional silent mornings for journaling and dance, to me leading a workshop each day very intentionally dedicated to each of the 4 phases of the cycle, bringing in both teachings and embodiment, such as the menarche reclamation ceremony that we did that was so deep for the women and releasing shame. Many of them said that was one of their favorite moments. And many of them also said that one of their favorite moments was the ovulatory workshop. So in each workshop for each phase of the cycle, we did a little bit of a teaching and a Q&A, and the women learned so much about their bodies and had so many breakthroughs about healing steps they can take for their cycles. A lot of the women on the retreat are wanting to conceive or coming off birth control or just wanting to connect more deeply with their bodies. But the women loved the workshop I did at the end of the ovulatory Q&A, which was a partner giving and receiving touch exercise. And that really initiated the women into giving and receiving each other massage with oil, breast massage, womb massage, shoulder massage, scalp massage, like all of these things for the rest of the retreat. It opened up such intimacy within the women. And that was just the 3rd day of the retreat. We had 8 days. And between all of our excursions, all of our meals together, all of our singing by the fire, everyone got so intimate and close with each other. And yeah, I mean, we all cried leaving. We hugged many times a day. Some of the women even said that they were never used to getting this many hugs and they want to bring that back into their communities at home. I mean, I could just go on about the magic that was present at this retreat. And yeah, Laura and I were so lit up by it and so emboldened and passionate by the women's raving reviews of the retreat, and that it was exactly what they needed, that we set new dates for the fall. So the next Women's Nourished and Thriving retreat, if you're getting the FOMO vibes already, is October 31st to November 8th, 2025, here in the Sacred Valley of Peru. So you can find the link to that in the show notes, as well as the link to anything else I offer, my virtual one-on-one sessions to work on your unique hormonal needs, the Cyclical Living Circle, my community space, my Instagram account, the Cyclical Playlists, which are a free gift to you, and much more. Yeah. So let's dive into today's episode. It's so beautiful. Yesterday, I received a womb massage from a sister who attended the retreat, who gifted Laura and I womb massages. And It was actually the first womb massage I ever received, and it was quite deep for me. There were a lot of tears. I've actually been moving through a lot of grief lately. I wasn't sure if I was going to share this, but it feels right to share it now. My dog, Leo, who is back in the States, passed away while I was here in Peru. And whew, it's been quite an initiation into learning to hold grief, really deep grief for my sweet boy who's only 5 years old. And also immense joy and expansion at hosting my first women's retreat and being in this incredibly sacred and special place. And I've been moving back and forth between the two of these, like, it's almost like I reach this peak of grief, or a peak of joy, and then it flows into the other. So like I'll be so lit up at the retreat, and then I get to this height, and then all of a sudden there's a wave into grief. And it just reminds me that this idea of grief being like the ocean or grief coming in waves really does resonate. It's like you can really be going for a while and the wave hits and all you can do is be present to it. And it's teaching me so much. It's only been a couple weeks, and so I'm still learning to be with it, and it's still very fresh. But it's, as I say in this episode later with Emma, it's both brutal and beautiful to move through. And I don't know, that's the only way I can really describe it. Yeah. And that womb massage that I received from my dear sister Jocelyn yesterday really opened up a portal into feeling for me. And there were a lot of tears for just like all the things I'm letting go of an old life and this new life I'm stepping into of travel and building a new life for myself that's like so beautiful and expansive. And um, yeah, my Saturn return just began a few days ago, and so I'm definitely feeling all of that. Um, and yeah, I bring up the womb massage because today we have my sweet sister Emma on the podcast, who is also a Maya abdominal massage practitioner. So we have a wisdom-filled and honest conversation with Emma Myers today. Like I said, Emma's a practitioner of hands-on and hands-in body work, and Emma's womb path really found her, as you'll hear, than she found it. This episode is really a deep dive into all things sisterhood and the power of women's gatherings to heal mother, sister, and witch wounds. It's about using our voices and learning to relate to one another in a healthy and intact way again. Emma shares about how she's being initiated into her mother archetype right now in her first pregnancy. In the episode, she was 20 weeks pregnant, though when this releases, she is nearly at the end of her pregnancy. Um, After she had an abundant season of magical maidenhood, which I can so relate to because I'm really in that right now. And how this entering into going from maiden to mother is changing her deeply. So tune in for telling full of womb to lead you into who you are becoming and for Emma's deeply grounded energy. All right, women, thank you for listening to all of these updates. If any of this resonates with you, please send me a message on Instagram. I would love to hear from you, and hopefully see you at the next retreat. All right, let's dive into today's episode. All right. Hey, Emma, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Natalie. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And if anyone listening is watching the video, Emma has these epic earrings on, like the coolest earrings I've ever seen.
I wish I knew the artist. My friend just gave them to me, but I
Oh,
know the girl who makes them. Her name is Mystery, and she's like based out of Bali.
so
So if you want to
cool.
find them, go check her out and support her because she makes really beautiful
Oh, amazing. I love it.
things.
Well, thanks for being here, Emma. I'm glad we got this to work this time. And yeah, as I was mentioning before, I would just love to hear. I know these are kind of interesting answers for you, but the first question I always ask everyone is what phase of their cycle they're in and what phase of life. So yeah, let us know what's up with you.
Yeah, so I'm pregnant, so I'm not cycling right now. I am 20 weeks pregnant. Uh,
Wow.
so yeah, I'm in this phase of this transition from maidenhood to motherhood. It's my first, it'll be my first baby, and yeah, it's a very exciting time of my life. I was telling Natalie before we pressed record, it's a time of great transition, I feel like, on every single aspect of my being. So, yeah, I've been in this kind of place of just like, I feel like kind of going through a big like death and rebirth of my own, and kind of this place of like, well, wow, I don't know who I am anymore. And I have no idea what this is all gonna look like, and I've just been kind of trying to listen to it. And yeah, there's been some painful parts of like these old parts of myself dying, and also some like relief and excitement of like, yeah, meeting this new version of myself that I've been like dreaming of my whole life. I've always wanted to be a mother, so it's exciting.
It's so big. It's so big and so beautiful. Like I feel the energy of that for you of like I mean, when I think about women becoming mothers for the first time, it's like our first in a way our first rite of passage, even though of course like our first bleed is. But like we're really moving, we've been in maidenhood our whole life, right? Like we've never really moved to another archetypal phase. And so this like first transition into something new, it's like, wait, what? And I think that's probably why women talk about this maiden to mother transition being so kind of like brutal in a way, but beautiful. I was actually saying this to someone recently. One time I was at a medicine ceremony and this guy was like, the only way to describe the journey is brutal, like brutal and beautiful.
Yeah, I know when you said that, I was like, yeah, brutal and beautiful. They kind of
Yeah.
sound the same, and they're very different. And do often coincide. Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting you said something like, I feel like you don't even know who you are right now and you're becoming someone new. And yeah, I just think that that's such an interesting space to be because, of course, it's like kind of scary. It's like, whoa, all this stuff has fallen away. Like, what's coming in? But it's like this extremely fertile place, like the fertile soil of like who you are becoming. Like, anything can be planted there. And I love too that you said like this version of yourself that you've wanted to become for some time. And I think that's really a wonderful place to be because I think many women can actually relate to that. They have this like idea of the mother archetype or the mature woman that they want to embody, and to actually feel like you're becoming that woman, like how exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting and it's intimidating. I think I've been facing a lot of these like parts of my maidenhood that I don't really want to carry with me, and like, these younger parts of like feeling a lot of like self-doubt and insecurity and like not enoughness and like those kind of shadow pieces, I think, of the maiden.
Yeah.
And I really felt a big shift in myself with this recent full moon. Actually, we're in January right now. I know this won't be getting released until later, but we
Yeah.
just had the full moon in Cancer, and I don't often like, I like astrology, but I don't often pay attention to it too much. But this one in particular felt so moving for me. And it's like, oh, the full moon in Cancer, it's like the mother
Mother.
archetype, right? And it's like this divine feminine. And I feel like that's what has been giving me a lot of strength, is this like, I've just been praying to the goddess, and like praying like for like that version of me and like this divine mother to like, come alive inside of me and like show me and like remind me of like who I am and how to like do this walk and how to like rise up into myself. And it's been this kind of like, I feel like this shift now that I'm like halfway through my pregnancy of like shifting out of those things where I've just been kind of like moping around of like, oh, I can't do it. It's too hard. Like, who am I? I don't know, and now I'm like, all right, like, let's fucking go. I can do this, and I believe in myself, and like I feel like there's so much power and strength and like, yeah, like you said, fertility like alive inside of me, and like this like strong belief in myself that's like giving me life.
Mm.
So that's been cool. I feel like I've always been, very into the feminine archetype and the goddess and women. And I feel like I even lost touch with all of that in the beginning of my pregnancy. And now I'm like being reminded of like the true, yeah, strength and power that lies in like that archetype and connecting with the goddess like that.
That's so amazing. Yeah, the full moon in Cancer is always, I feel like, a really great full moon every year because it feels like good. Like the moon is happy there. So I love that felt connective for you. And yeah, this topic around like we just had a call. I have a membership, and in my membership, we just had a call on like exploring our wounded maiden archetype.
Mm,
And so much of what you were saying is like what a lot of us can relate to in that maiden phase, the like, when you were saying like, oh, I can't do it. It's like that damsel in distress archetype, like needing someone to come save you.
mhm.
And then I think in motherhood, it's not like you move into this like hyper independent place, I don't think, but it's more like you're fully capable, and because of that, you're willing to ask for help and like lean on your community. And I think it's a really cool shift because it's mostly, I think, an internal shift. It's not like,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think also it's like in motherhood, it's like, well, there's all this like life depending on you. You know, it's like
you have
you
to
don't
do it.
really have time or option to be like, I can't. Like it's like okay, but you got to. So like you gotta
Well,
get up, you gotta cook yourself some food, you gotta whatever, like
you have to. Yeah. It's
do
when you
it.
were saying something like, I think at the beginning you were saying it's almost a relief. And I forget exactly what you're referring to, but what it sort of triggered in me is this thing of like, when I think of one day when I become a mother, it's like, man, I think it would be nice to not be so focused on myself all the time.
Right? I know. I know. Sometimes I think when we have like too much time on our hands, like we can very easily get like swooped up in this, yeah, like negative self-talk,
Mm,
self-doubt, like um I don't know, like crisis mode, like constantly processing our stuff. And it's
yes,
like, yeah, when you have other things to take care of, it's like there's just not enough time to do that. So you kind of just got to be like, all right, this is what it is. I'm moving on and moving forward and like trying harder and better, you know, not
totally.
necessarily harder, but like just trying better, you know?
Totally. I love that. Yeah, I think in maidenhood, and it's a beautiful thing about maidenhood that we like are so focused on ourselves and
Hmm.
cultivating who we are and our identity and who we want to be in this world. But then I think, that is supposed to end. We're not supposed to be in the processing, constant healing, working on ourselves phase forever. And that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's something, one of the episodes of the podcast with Kristen Hauser, my mentor, she talks about that, about how like, I think her quote is motherhood requires you to go all in on reality.
Mm.
And I think that's a really interesting place because I think the mother is a lot more grounded than the maiden. The maiden's like very floaty, and that's so fun. But then
So
in
fun.
motherhood, it's like, okay, let's actually root down now.
Totally. And I'm definitely facing a lot of that. And there's been some resistance in myself to that because, like, I love the maiden, you know, like, no disrespect to her. I had so much fun and still do, you know, and I think it's like, those parts of us live on in us
For
forever.
sure.
And we kind of get to pick and choose which pieces we want to carry forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, like no judgment on the maiden. I loved my maidenhood so much and it was so fun. Like it took me all over the place and I just kind of like didn't worry about a lot of things. And I would just be like, I don't really have a lot of money. I'm just gonna go do this thing and like hope it works out, and like have this like kind of magical thinking that like anything is possible and like you
Totally.
can really create a lot of that. And I've been, yeah, facing this thing where it's like, okay, reality is hitting, and like now I have children who are gonna be depending on me. So I can't really make those kinds of decisions anymore, where it's just like, well, I just have a little bit of money and I want to go do this travel or training or experience, retreat, whatever. And like, I just hope I have enough money. Like, I learned in my maidenhood that like, I could trust myself with that and like I could always figure it out for myself. I don't feel like I can be taking this kind of like lofty risks with having a child and like that's been hard for me to face
Yeah.
that reality because I do feel that that kind of magical thinking is really valuable. I feel like it does help us achieve things that like might seem impossible,
Yeah.
and like it helps us to be like but maybe there's a chance, there is the nature of reality is that there is infinite possibility available to us, right? And like there's also something really valuable in being practical and grounded
Yeah.
and like, just playing it safe. Like
Yeah.
that's helpful for our nervous systems and like the nervous systems of our children.
Oh, totally. Yeah, so much resonance with everything you said. Because I think what happens when we like move into these different phases is it's just like a layer that's added. And so I think, like you said, it's really important in maidenhood to like have that magical thinking and to take the chances. Like one of the maiden's gifts is that she's so courageous and
Mhm.
also that she's like quite naive, like
Yep.
she's just like, let's try this. And I mean, I think about so many, things that I did too, and I'm still in that phase. And so I'm still kind of like, maybe I'll go to Peru and maybe I'll, we were just talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? This is so important. It's so important because you need to be a little bit naive in order to take the
Yeah.
risks, see
You
what is
do.
possible for your life, like we're
Mhm.
figuring it out. We're setting like this groundwork so that when you come to the mother, you're ready. Like you're ready to like have that settling because you feel like you've explored. And I think the women who don't allow their like naive maiden selves to kind of like take the wheel for a while, those are the ones who have a really hard time with the transition to mother because it's like, wait, what? But did I do this and did I do that? And maybe a little bit of that comes in regardless. But I think what the moving into the mother archetype does from what I've heard from women and from the teachings I've learned from is like it just gives you this layer of like bringing groundedness to the dreams that you've cultivated. And um, I think that's the journey. Like that's the journey. And of course, it's hard because you're having to stand still when you've moved around for so long. But
Mhm.
I love your orientation to it. I think it's really healthy and really sweet.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm so curious to hear about your maidenhood years too, but I'd like to start at the beginning. So, yeah, tell us about your menarche.
Yeah, so let's see. I got my first bleed, I believe I think I was 13. I might have been 12, but I think I was 13 in eighth grade. And I remember I don't know if it happened like at school or it was like after school or something, but I had this one friend who was like my best friend. Um, and we were, um, I wouldn't call us mature for our age, but we thought we were like we were like moving fast. And
Yeah.
so like at like 12 and 13, I was naughty. Like I was like I was like smoking weed, I was drinking alcohol, I was like making out with boys. I was boy crazy. And so me and her were like I don't know, we were very comfortable with each other, like in our bodies and like our sexuality, I think. And I was like so embarrassed to talk to my mom about this. Like I remember it too, even when I like needed a bra, and I remember having to like call my mom because she was at the store and be like, I think I need a bra. And I was like so embarrassed to like tell her.
Oh.
And yeah, it was just like horrible. I don't know why it was like so shameful for me. But
Well,
so luckily I had her, and I
yeah.
remember like she had already gotten hers, and so she was like trying to tell me how to use a tampon. And we went through so many tampons and I like could not figure out how to get it. I think probably looking back, I'm like, well, yeah, my body probably just didn't want that like dry ass piece of cotton being stuck up in my sacred part.
Right. Like, of course, when we look back, we see that.
Yeah. Oh, like chemical
You're like, oh, I must
dry
just,
cotton. Like, oh.
we're kids. We're like, oh, I must just like not be doing it right. Or like,
Yeah. So we went through so many, and then until we finally got to the point where I was like, I cannot do this. And so I like laid down on my bed and she like inserted it for me. Which was like sweet, it was like
I
very
love that.
innocent. And um yeah, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of blocked it out for the first little while. I always had really bad cramps from a young age, and um Yeah, I remember having so much shame and like even anger around getting my moon. Like I um remember being like, this is so unfair. Like, why does this happen to women? You know, like why don't men have to experience this? Like this is such like I felt like it was such a burden. It was so messy. It was so
Mm,
embarrassing. Like I felt like it held me back. Like especially
mm,
in the summertime when I'm like trying to like go swimming and just like live in a bathing suit. You know, I just like, is my
yeah.
tampon string hanging out? Like I was so embarrassed. But I got over it and yeah, I did end up going on birth control at a young age too. I was on birth control when I was like 16.
Okay.
Um I did have horrible cramps, but also I was like started having sex, and so I was like I wanted to go on birth control, but I was like not good at it. I'm not a person who's like very good at like being consistent and doing something at the same time every day. So I wasn't like very good at it, but I did that and then yeah, I mean there's a whole journey of course, but I totally came around to a place where like for a while now, you know, it's like a time of my cycle and a part of myself that like I am in love with. You know, it's
Mhm.
obviously not happening right now, but like
Yeah.
I love being a woman. I love
Right.
cycling. I love just like witnessing every cycle, like the wisdom of the body. I'm just like seriously in awe of it, like every time where I'm just like, this is like the most intelligent design.
Well, I so feel you. I think about that often. I'm on today I'm on day 11, and so I finished bleeding like
Mm,
a little
I'm
less
so
than a week
sorry.
ago. And it's like I'm still in that like aftermath of my bleed where I'm like, wow, all these visions and I'm a new woman and everything is different now. And it's so cool to feel that like every month. It's like I'm
It's so
new
cool.
every month. And I do feel that, very deeply that like I become someone new after every single bleed.
Hmm.
And I love that you speak to this like, difference between how you viewed your moon when you were a young maiden and how you view your moon now as a more mature maiden moving into mother. And I think I think a lot of women can relate to that anger, even me. And that wasn't something I initially would have said for my early cycling years, but the sort of like and I think it almost comes from this like feminist righteousness that like I totally had when I was younger of like, well, men don't have to deal with this and blah blah blah. And just like that like why? Why should I have to deal with this? And then recognizing that like almost every day when I do like a gratitude journal now, it's like, wow, thank God I'm a woman.
No, I know. I'm so grateful. Like
It's
I
just
feel like God
fun.
blessed me up in this lifetime. You know, I love men. Don't get me wrong. I
Oh
love men
yeah.
so much and I'm so grateful for them. They're such beautiful creatures and I have like they're yeah, it's just so much love and respect for men. But like I just love being a woman.
Well, I think too, I almost feel like like attuning with your cycle and appreciating your cycle goes hand in hand also with appreciating men because for me as a cycling woman, like I definitely am not my feminist self of my early maidenhood years. Like there's some
Right.
things, of course, like I love women deeply. I love women, but I feel like being a cyclical woman gives me so much appreciation for the stability of men and like what they provide in this world. It's like, God,
Yeah.
so needed.
Yeah, no, I could not live without them.
Yeah.
I would just be like floating around and just be like, and I wouldn't be able to keep up with it, not be
Yeah.
able to sustain it. I need some clarity and some direction in my life.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, I could talk about that all day too. Like just the beauty of like having both men and women on this planet is just so special. And I think that that is like really when we live in our feminine design and we live in alignment with our cycles, it's like you do see that, like how important the polarity between men and women really, really is. Uh,
Hmm.
I also love the part of your story of like your friend helping you put your tampon in. And I think I shared this when we tried to record before, and it didn't work out. But, I wanted that so badly in my menarche. Like I wanted
Mm.
someone to just help me. And I just didn't have someone who I felt intimate or, yeah, like close and comfortable enough with. And I think that these menarche imprints that we receive are that they're imprints of like what we
Mm.
take into the rest of our maidenhood years. And so to
Mm.
take that like really sweet sisterhood intimacy bond into your maidenhood years, like do you feel like that? Do you feel like you took that into your years? Like, do you feel like that friendship allowed you to have deep intimacy with women throughout your cycling years?
Yeah, absolutely. It was like, I feel like I always in my life have had a close group of women around me, except there was a period in high school, where I didn't. Actually, after that year, my mom like banned me from seeing all of my friends because they were just like, we were just getting into like things that 13-year-olds should not be getting into. And she's like, I gotta put a stop to this. And I was so pissed. But like looking back, I'm like, it's one of the best decisions she ever made for me
Mm,
because like, yeah, I just see the paths that we took, as friends. And um yeah, it's sad.
mm,
And so anyways, like I was like went through all of these like transitions after that, like trying to find who my people were until I finally was just like, whatever, like I'm done with everyone and I just wanted to
mm.
hang out with my brother all the time. And I give so much thanks to my brother because I think he is part of the reason why I have such love and appreciation for men because he's just a really good man and he
Aw.
always was. And it's just me and him growing up. And on my mom's side, we have three cousins. And so he was just three girl cousins. And so he was always surrounded by women and has a close relationship with my mom. So I feel like he has this really balanced perspective of like, understanding women and like our emotions. Like I was always able to have like real deep conversations with him, even from when we were in high school. And he had a really close group of guy friends that he grew up with since like elementary school. And I was just like, whatever, I don't really care what they're all doing and he's doing. I was like, I just want to be with my brother all the time. So, and he let me go everywhere with him. And like wherever he was going, I would just go with him. And like his friends all accepted me. I felt like I was kind of just like a fly on the wall, around them. I like engaged, but also like, I didn't care. They were like playing like FIFA and like video games and like talking about boy shit that I didn't care about. But I was just like, I'm just gonna be here, you know? And they just let me, and I was just like their little sister. And so then I had this period where I was like, no, I'd rather just like hang out with dudes. And like
Mm,
I did that. And then, yeah, that was just a brief period. Ever since then, on either end of that, I've always had close women in my life. And yeah, really, yeah, close female friendships. And
mm,
I feel like it's something that I feel really blessed with in my life. And yeah, I remember, I don't know, I just feel like I'm a Leo too. I feel like I've always just kind of had like a pride of women around me. Like we're just
love
like
it.
Leo.
I love that pride of women around you. That's so good.
Yeah, and it's like it's one thing in my life that I feel like it's just given me so much support. Like I will always be so grateful for women and I started going to women's gatherings and um had this whole other new appreciation. Like I remember my first women's gathering I ever went to um and it's like outside of Nevada. It was Moon Mountain Gathering. It was before Origins was Origins. It was called Moon
Oh,
Mountain
I
and it
went to
was in
Origins.
yeah, I never went. I think you went to Costa Rica,
Costa
right?
Rica.
Yeah, I never went to it when it was in Costa Rica, but oh my gosh, like they put on such an amazing thing. And I went there and I remember the feeling of being surrounded by 100 women or something and like the level of freedom and safety that I felt in my body
Mm,
was
mm,
just like so impactful to me. Like I realized like the importance truly of gathering with women and being in spaces where it's just women. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. We've been through a lot as women, and I love men so much, but there's been like just this such distortion between men and women and our sexuality and all this stuff for so many generations that like I feel those spaces are so needed for us
Mhm.
to be able to like do our healing, to be able to come back together in a good way. And so
Mm.
yeah, that really inspired me. And then I like got even more into like, and then I started hosting women's circles and working with women and um yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, I think, I do so much work with women on healing on many different levels. So whether that's through like diet and herbs and things to heal cycle imbalance or, just like cyclical living and awareness and fertility awareness method, like all these. But I honestly, like when I work with women, it's like the most important thing you can do is gather with other women. And I honestly credit that for my own, like the deepest part of my cycle and womb healing journey was like when I started attending women's gatherings. Because it's like, of course, we have this nervous system, womb heart connection. And so, like, feeling safe is vital for having a healthy cycle and just being healthy in general. And like our DNA is like used to gathering with women. Like we've been doing this for millennia, it's like it's in our bones. And you're so right that that space of gathering with just women is so necessary. I also remember my first time going to a women's gathering. It was the Matriarch Rising Festival from Free Birth Society in, I guess it was 2021 or 2022, something like that. And wow, like I didn't know it was possible to feel that safe and secure and just like what it's like to be in a space without men. And it's true. It's like it's not that like we love men, but we do need that space for our own healing. And yeah, it's really wonderful to hear that sort of like thread through your story of like having sisterhood and allowing that to be like a constant for you. I think
Mhm.
that's like my prayer for all women, really.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I really don't know where I would be without like the amazing like support of women that
Yeah.
I feel like surrounds me, you know? Like it's um yeah, I don't know. I feel like it just really helps me like see myself, you know, and um this life is crazy. There's like so much like going on all the time. There's so much like chaos and uncertainty and there's so much like yeah, distortion in the world that like I don't know, it's really hard to navigate sometimes and like as women, I think too like the more I step into my femininity, it's like the more I am available for my emotions to move through me. And so that's been like a whole journey too of like figuring out, my emotional balance and well-being and like, I don't know, to have support to like help me navigate those times when my emotions just feel like so big. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like I could like go through that alone and like be on that. Or I could just like call a sister and like in like an hour after a phone call feel like a completely different person, you know?
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like, have you ever just felt like you were totally depressed and then you call your girlfriend and 2 hours later you're like, wow, I feel amazing.
Yeah, you're like, actually, I'm fucking amazing and I'm
Yeah.
gonna crush this life. Like,
Like, how
yeah.
magical is that? When you actually
Yeah.
think about it, it's like, wow, like us women, like we were really designed to be living together. And even if we're not, like most of my friends, because I kind of live this nomadic life right now, and most of my friends are in different places. But like just getting on the phone, it's like, gosh, such medicine.
It's such medicine and like I don't know, women carry such deep medicine and just in who they are. I think, hugely in part is because we allow ourselves to feel so deeply,
Mm,
and because of that, like we are just there. We're present for the things that
yeah.
are happening for us and we navigate them and we like allow ourselves to go to the depths and then we like learn what we need to do to like navigate those waters, And so it's like we gain wisdom from like allowing ourselves to like feel the hard things and not just like go through life turning it off and acting like everything's okay. It's
Well,
like,
absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, it's like we can't unless you're on birth control and like suppressing your cycle, like you are moving through these cycles of like deep initiation every month, whether you're like conscious of it or not, it's sort of happening. Um,
right.
I'm curious, yeah. So those years, how long were you on birth control?
I was on birth control probably from 16 to 20. I would
Okay.
20 or 21. Yeah.
And did you feel like, I mean, of course, you probably felt different on many levels, but like what did you feel like you were still able to connect with your emotional depths, or was that not available to you yet in that time?
I don't think so. I don't think I was like available for that on that level. I mean, I'm looking back to when before I got on birth control and like yeah, when like my menarche time, I was highly emotional. Like I was hard to live with.
I think I was too, to be honest.
Like as my parents and my brother, they wanted to get out. Like I was just like freaking out because I could not handle like the depth of my emotions and it was big, you know? And then I think it's interesting because I'm looking back and like in that time of me being on birth control is also the time of my life when like I was smoking a lot of weed. And so I was probably also just like a little checked out, you know? I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure I was emotional, but I don't remember it being like that. And I think really, I was actually thinking about this the other day. I feel like the time that my emotions came back online, it was like with plant medicine. I remember my first ever like plant medicine journey. I had like this huge I mean, I was literally purging the entire night. Like it was like a
Wow.
disaster, like it was horrible. And I was just like throwing up, pooping like 20 times. And
Oh
then
God.
it ended, I feel like, it felt like it was like 45 minutes. I don't know how long it was, but I was just like, it felt like there was like waterfalls coming out of my eyes. Like I was like crying so much. And
Wow.
like the water was just like, I don't know. It was like so present in me. And actually in that night is when I really realized too of like the importance of like my connection to women and like
Mm,
had this strong sense of like this is my work in the world, and I felt this like the pain and the grief of women all over the world, just like what we've been through, and how we're all connected like through that, like we as women we feel each other. What we've all experienced, we all experience to some level in our bodies, like have that body memory. And so I feel like ever since then it was like my emotions came back online and like now I like cry all the time, and that wasn't happening before. And it's not even necessarily all bad crying, like I cry about like beautiful things or like I don't know. I'm just like so sensitive. And that's been a learning too, of like learning how to hold myself through that as well. And not even just
yes.
always needing other people to hold me in that, but like learning how to mother myself, and like allow those things to come and also like learning how to like show up in the midst of it.
Oh yeah, gosh, that's such an amazing topic, and actually one that I've been having. I feel like every time I get a woman on for an interview, it's like the themes are so similar to what I've already been talking to like other women in my life about. Just we tend to all be on the same wavelength in some way or another. And yeah, that idea of like feeling your emotions while also and being vulnerable and being sensitive while also learning how to like hold yourself and find like containment around that, I think is a really big theme for a lot of women.
Mhm.
Because I think when we're young maidens and like getting our first bleed, like we're all sensitive, like we're all so emotional and like highly emotional. And we actually really need containment from our mothers, or like other older women in the community. But we often don't get that because they haven't had that modeled for them. And so they can't model it for us. And then we also then have to learn how to like mother ourselves. And I think that's a big learning curve for a lot of women is like, yes, being open and vulnerable and soft and yielding, and feeling your feelings and letting life move through you. But then how how do you still keep moving forward with that and not just totally collapse all the time,
Mhm.
right? Because I've been there where I'm just collapsing all the time. So I'm curious if you are open to sharing, like, how do you mother yourself? Like, what are some ways that you practice that?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
whether subtle or very practical.
that's a good question. Um, yeah, I feel that I never hold back, you know. I never hold back of like what I'm feeling. Although I feel like I don't know. I guess I'm better now at like um knowing when's the right time and space to like allow myself to fully drop into the feeling, you know?
Yeah.
Um and it's interesting because for the longest time, like it for me, it's always been about the body. It's always been about like moving emotion through the body. And you know, like dance and yoga have been hugely supportive for me, but I feel like it's been interesting because in this transition that I'm in right now of like that I was kind of describing a little bit at the beginning of the podcast where I've been in this place of like I don't know who I am anymore and I've been facing all of these like challenges, you know, with this like baby like inviting me and initiating me into some really big change in my life, I have felt a little bit stuck and I have like found like it's been hard to access my body. It's been hard to get up and move, you know, especially at the beginning of my pregnancy. I was super nauseous all the time and like it was like hard for me to like be in my practice. It's like actually the most out of it that I've been in years. So that's been interesting. I've been like, okay, when that gets taken away, like, what is my resource, you know? And it's just like, yeah, I mean, I think like walks in nature are like also always something that like I never go into nature and go on a walk and like come back the same, you know,
Yeah.
and I never go and do that and been like, man, I wish I didn't do that. That was a waste of time. Like it's just always like, oh yeah. I go out there and I'm like, okay, now I remember everything's okay. Like this is
Yeah.
grounding, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, taking baths, Epsom salts, like being with the water element, you know,
Yeah.
um,
That's
are
huge.
things that have been helpful.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think, yeah, moving emotions through the body is a really beautiful way to feel them. But I also have heard from a lot of women on this podcast, Kristen, Carly, who was on a recent episode, have all talked about how, like their hours long yoga and meditation routines, like that doesn't work at a certain point, and you have to find more efficient ways to like get what you need. Um, and yeah, like sometimes that is like just going for a walk. God, it's amazing
Mhm.
what just going for a walk. And because the earth, I think I can't remember the first time I heard this. It might have been from Marin, from Indie Birth, and she said something like the earth is all of our original mother. And of course, that's not her original thought. Like we all know that. But I remember hearing that on her podcast and just being like, oh, yeah. So, like, when I need mothering, turn to the earth. And I think
Yeah.
that's really profound and simple.
hmm hmm It
Yeah.
is. I mean, I think it's like so it is just that like it's simple and you know for everyone it's not accessible. Luckily for where I'm currently living, like I have woods. I live in like a suburban neighborhood.
Hmm.
Um, you know, like all the houses look the same and everything, but there's like woods in the back of my house and I
Oh,
can just go
so
outside
nice.
and like be in the woods. And so that's been like such a savior and that's not available for everyone. And the other thing like that I think is also helpful when like even that's not accessible and sometimes it's hard to get out in the winter and stuff like that, but like having the elements on my altar, you know,
Yes.
has always been such a grounding just sight for me to see and like just
Yes.
to have that there and like to be able to have a candle and like a vial of like sacred water and you know some incense some smoke like those very simple elements, just like one of each on your altar, like, and having also like beauty for me too is also incredibly like grounding and nourishing. And so if everything in my life feels chaotic, like even if I just have this like small corner of my room that's like very beautiful and like aesthetically pleasing and has all these like little sacred objects, like it's such yeah, it's just like so nourishing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, the altar practice, because that's a huge one for me too. It's my altar is just right behind me, by the fireplace over there. And it like sitting there every morning with lighting my incense, lighting my candle, seeing my thing of water, having the rock there, having the flowers and all my pretty items sitting there. It's like that gives me so much peace and groundedness. And like, I don't know what I'd do if I didn't start my day there, you know. Or like just see it. Like you're right, like just see it
Yeah, yeah.
corner, like when I'm doing, like when I'm on my laptop or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
it's so grounding. And that is a way that we can all connect with the elements is just place a candle, a feather, maybe for air, the water, and like a rock. It doesn't even have to be like a fancy crystal, like find a rock in your yard.
Yeah, literally a rock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so nice. It's amazing. And, my mentor, Nancy Lucina, who's one of my teachers in the Blood Mysteries School program I did, she talks about how, like, as women, our nervous systems really do soften in the presence of beauty. And it is really, really soothing for us on a deep level. And so, yeah, like that is a really important piece for like mothering yourself, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious too, we're talking about like sisterhood stuff. If like did you ever have to heal any sort of like sister wound type things, or was it always pretty easy for you to connect with women?
I definitely had sister wounds because all of my I had a hard time with relationships in my life. I've had some good relationships. I'm in a good one now, but like I said, I got into like boys really early on, and like
Mm.
we're also just so young that like we should not be getting into like committed relationships when we're 13 years old. You
Of
know?
course.
So like my first boyfriend, he was like we were like 12 and 13 and we were together for like 1.5, 2 years, and like we like broke up every other week, and like he was like cheated on me, and like my first like string of boyfriends all cheated on me. And so that was hard. And then I had a couple situations where like I really like liked a guy or something, and like me and my friend both liked them, and then
Oh
like
yeah.
they got him and like whatever like that, you know.
Yeah, I've been
And
there.
like those kind of situations definitely repeated a few times in my life. And so I totally had like jealousy stuff and
Mm.
just like a hard time just trusting women friends in general, and like it would just make me like anxious and get between us. But I feel like yeah, there was a time um that I worked through that a lot. I had one really, we were like so close, me and this one sister, and I've been really nomadic too. And I feel like every time I move around, there's always like one sister that we like latch onto each other and we're like, you're my person, you know? And so it was her, and like we were so close and like loved each other so much, but we had these like a few men come between us,
Mm.
and but because we were so close and maybe a little bit older, and we were both also very sensitive and communicative, like we were able to work through that together, and like there was a true sense of safety between us. So, we were able to like talk about these really hard things together, and like our triggers, and like support each other in that, and
Wow.
while still being like authentic. So,
Yeah. See,
uh,
and that's it. It's like these things don't get healed by you just like journaling about your sister wound, right? It's like
yeah,
happens in sisterhood.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I remember when I first heard the term the sister wound, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And there was a woman on Instagram posting about it. And I just love my like younger self for this because I was just so curious and so open. And I just like sent her an Instagram message and I was like, how do you heal the sister wound? she was like, well, you just gather with your sisters. And it is really that simple. And I ended up hiring her as a coach and we worked together for a while and it was really sweet. But yeah, like I've had a few sisters like that too, where it's like, the good sisterhood isn't the one with no problems, isn't the one with no triggers. It's the one where like you're able to work through that together and have those sort of like sticky, icky conversations and like move through it.
Hmm.
So that's really special that you had a woman in your life who you felt safe to do that with.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think that continues to, and I think that's like a measure too of like those are the women you want to have around you.
Yeah.
You don't need to have women around you that like never trigger you. Actually, it's probably good,
Yeah.
to have women around you that are triggering because, but it's like this combination of like someone who might trigger your insecurities, but someone who's also like feels safe to your nervous system and that you're able to like talk about these things without like
Yes.
offending each other,
Yes.
like there's a certain level of maturity, in the dynamic that allows you to like go to those places and like not feel afraid that you're gonna like lose each other or like
Mhm.
that it's gonna get to a place where it's like you're just like calling each other names or like whatever, it's just like no, this is like real stuff. And like, I think, being around women who have this kind of understanding that like, I feel like I keep saying this, but just like where we're at collectively, it's like we're in a giant collective repair right now, It's like our parents' generation, like we've had so much trouble just like relating, being in right relationship,
Yeah.
and we're all kind of like little babies in that realm, or like maybe little teenagers right now.
Yeah, totally.
And we're all learning these skills of like being with our emotions and like learning how to be authentic, learning how to express ourselves, learning how to be free in who we are, but like in a way that's also respectful and honoring of the people around us and of our community and like how to do that in a way where like yeah, we feel free, but also like in right relationship with one another. And it's not easy because there's just like we're coming from generations of like there being so much pain and so much like violence, of like because of us like shoving down our emotions and shoving down like this is how we really feel, so actually I'm going to like do this thing that like I really want to do, but like I'm not going to like acknowledge it, and then I'm just going to like hurt people and never talk about it and like act like it's their fault and like it's like this endless cycle of pain that we're all like, I think our generation especially is like putting in the work to learn the skills to like humble our egos enough to like come out and be like, look, I was wrong and I'm sorry and I fumbled, and like
Hmm.
believing in the possibility of growth together, So,
Yeah.
surrounding ourselves with people that like are kind of on that journey and can hold those things and like knowing that like nobody's expecting perfection here. We get it.
Yeah, gosh. I love everything you said, especially that no one's expecting perfection here. I think that's been a really key piece for me when I don't want to say like I don't even know what word the word that's coming through is like audit people for like who is a good friend. I don't mean it that like harshly, but like I really appreciate and look for in a relationship, whether that's like a romantic partner or like a girlfriend or whoever, that we have space for each other's like unskillful moments and mistakes, and that
Mhm.
we can repair from those things and be a safe space for each other, exactly like you said, because we aren't perfect. We are all learning. I think that that's so true that we are in this like probably teenager phase of learning how to connect with other people. And it's almost crazy to me now. I mean, not crazy because I have compassion for it, but to see adults who like still cannot see their responsibility or like take ownership over their own way of contributing to something. And it's all just, oh, and this person, and I can't believe they, and I'm sometimes like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It's sort of crazy, but we are really in this collective healing space, and it does require a lot of humility, and some of us just don't feel safe to, or some people just don't feel safe to get to that level. Um, I am curious though. I find there's sort of this thread of like restoration and restoring of connection that I see that often happens in women at the same time with their relationships and with like their connection to their womb and their cycle. So I'm
Hmm.
curious if those things, like that restoration of connection to sisterhood and like your connection to your womb, did those coincide at all, or were they kind of different awakenings for you?
Can you reframe that question again?
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot about this idea of just restoring connection,
Hmm.
because I think that in our culture we have this just like lack of connection in so many ways, like lack of connection to each other, lack of connection to our bodies, to our food, to the land. And I'm noticing this pattern where like someone wakes up to one way that they reconnect, whether that's connecting to their body or connecting to others or connecting to food, and then the other ways sort of all of a sudden wake up too.
Hmm.
So I'm curious like how that went for you. Like did your connection with your womb start at all, or when did that kind of happen?
Yeah, so that time that I was like with that one sister and we had kind of all those repairs, like that really helped my sister wound. I
Hmm.
remember, I think I was like just beginning to like hear and feel like the voice of my womb coming,
Mm.
and being like, okay, like we've got some work to do, like I had no idea anything about that. I'd never heard anything about like womb connect. Like it was just like not a thought in my
Yeah.
awareness, in my reality of like to even connect with your womb or something.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't remember in that exact moment like when it was coming on, but I do remember there was a huge like throat connection coming online for me at that period of my life. And I remember like there was a lot of stuff coming up for me about like standing up for myself and speaking my voice. I was also living on like 190 acres of land and I started like I would just wander the land and like sing and like I remember
That's
like
so
my
sweet.
my voice had been shut down for like so long like since I was like a little girl like I remember like noticing at that time like my voice was so closed that like I wouldn't even sing in the car by myself, like it was just like I was like mute, I felt like in some ways. And I remember like, I mean, that sister, like she was very vocal and expressive. She always said how she felt. She wasn't afraid to like say how she felt to people. She was very sweet about it, but like she expressed herself and she was so vulnerable and she also like loved to sing and like write songs. And so like I think she like woke up a lot in me and we would like make songs together and she would like play them on the guitar and it was like this fun experience and she would encourage me to like speak up for myself and like
Mm.
um so that was like really coming online and then probably like a year later I had a series of experiences that like the voice of my womb was like boom like come like it was like bringing me down. I feel like for a long time I had been really into yoga and like all of my focus and awareness was like going up, up, up. Like I was like all about like
Yeah.
waking up my third eye, like all of my meditations were like there, very heady, very masculine. And I remember my womb being like, and at the time I was like living on farms. I was a farmer for like 6 years, and like my whole everything was like rolling around in the dirt, like literally,
Yes.
And so at that time, like it was also like, yeah, get into your body, get onto the earth. Like this is where the work is. This is where like to bring your awareness to. And it's been like that, I guess now it's like I'm coming into this more integrated place, but yeah, there was this whole series of experiences of like, and I remembered the one of the first things I did actually was taking a voice of your womb course. And so I like had this
Wow.
voice thing going on. I was like really curious about exploring my voice. And there was this thing about the voice of the womb, and I was like learning about the connection between our throats and our womb and our cervix and our larynx and how they're connected, and how when one feels closed off, the other one feels closed off. And so if you
Mm.
want to open your throat and open your voice and your expression, like you have to feel safe in your pelvis, and like all these like connections were coming on. And I had realized like I don't know, just started doing this deep dive into like my relationships and my sexuality, and like some experiences that I had had that had like really impacted me that I had never thought about. And like realizing, yeah, like you're saying, like I had these kind of very distorted relationships with my sexuality and with food and with my body. And like I started realizing all of this, and like realizing like I hadn't been in the healthiest relationships, and like realizing all this stuff was connected. And like, really started diving into that. And I guess looking back on it, it was all happening simultaneously. That's when I also started going to the women's gathering. That's when I also started hosting women's circles. That's when like I started working with mentors and like people, and like just like the path like drew me in hard. And I was just like seeking this information without even really like knowing it. Like it felt like it was just like falling on my path. Like, oh, here's another teacher, here's another teacher, here's another sister, like that.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it is kind of amazing. And what it reminds me of is just that, like, I think when we begin living devotedly to our wombs, it's like all these other things are no longer optional to heal. Like we can't be in an unsafe relationship. We can't put food that our bodies don't love in it. We can't, like have sister wounds. Like it's just the voice of the womb, like you said, can be so loud until we make the changes. And I think it's interesting too because you're like, I didn't have any idea, like the voice of my womb, like what is that?
No, no, and I could have never, and I ended up like now I do like hands-on, hands-in body work, and
Yeah.
I'm like I never could have imagined like looking back like and being like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do when I grow up. I'm like I had no idea that even existed or was like a thing, or like I could not have like planned that for myself. Like, it just like happened. I don't know. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean that's the beauty of the trusting and the restoring of the connection, right? Is that it also restores your connection to trusting the divine, and trusting the divine plan of your life, which Um, yeah, it's like coming back to what we said at the beginning, like as women, we're constantly being born anew, like each
Mhm.
cycle, each initiation from maiden to mother to sorceress to crone, from, young maiden to bleeding maiden, like all of these initiations bring us into a new phase. And like we kind of have to be in trust because we never know what might be true in the next moment, is what I think I've learned.
Mhm.
Seems like you too.
Yeah, totally. I have no idea. And I feel like I'm at another place with that right now. It's been like these last couple of years I've been just strongly like, yeah, holding women's circles, doing online courses with women, doing one-on-one clients, online body work, like all womb centered. And now I'm just like, I don't really know what I'm actually up to. Like, we're just kind of, I'm into like becoming a mother now, and I don't know like what else.
Well, yeah, it's like you kind of have to
Yeah.
see like what that phase of life ushers you into. I think
Hmm.
it's cool it's so easy to want to hold on, to
Yeah.
hold on to like what we've been doing. Like, wait, but this is me. But to like be moving into this new phase of life and be like, well, I guess we'll see who I'm becoming. Like I don't know, that's just kind of cool.
It is very cool. And I think also a part of it for me has been like, I don't know, it's wild because I still encounter, I don't know if it's like, yeah, shame or what. It's like about this work, and like just
Mm,
being out there and loud about what I do. I think because of my like into working with it was like heavily focused on like healing our wounds with sexuality, and that has been there's been times where it's been easier. There's times where I'm like I don't give a fuck. Like I'm talking about this. Like, and there's other times where I'm like, I'm pulling back on this. Like there's just so much distortion around that topic and that part of who we are still in our culture that um I just I'm protective of the way that I talk about it, where I share it, like who I share it with. And then
Yeah.
there's other moments where I'm like, yeah, like this is something that like needs to be talked about and that people need to like face, and
Yeah.
like there's so much injustice that needs to be voiced, and
Mm.
then there's other times where I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna like be quiet about this because people just don't get it. So it's the kind of this like push and pull that I've been like dancing with the entire time. That's been really interesting as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the shame piece is a really interesting thread to pull in this whole like womanhood world because I think it lives within all of us in like kind of sneaky ways and it can rear its head at unexpected times. I'm curious, do you notice the like hesitation to share? Is it like months long periods of time? Is it connected to like where you are in your cycle when you're cycling? Like when does that come up or is it just kind of seemingly random?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say that it's like around my cycle or not. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it does last for longer periods of time. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it just kind of is. I can relate. I feel like sometimes I'll like go on Instagram and like post a selfie of my blood all over my face and write the caption is like, does this trigger you? Like sometimes that's the vibe. And then other times I'm like, nobody can see me.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, like that kind of shit. I mean, we've come so far, but it
Yeah.
is real that like that's the shit we got burned for,
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
not that long ago. And so it's like that fear, I think, is like, and now it's like we're not like literally getting burned at the stake, but like the level of like judgment and misunderstanding and I really consider myself to be a person who like doesn't give a fuck what other people think about me. But at the same time, I I don't know. Maybe there is a part of me that like on a larger scale, like I want people to respect me or something. And
Yeah, and I think too that oftentimes these things, like you were talking about, processing emotion through your body, like the somatic piece is huge too, that a lot of these imprints of shame or imprints of like the witch wound, like being burned at the stake for sharing the medicine, like it lives in our body in a certain sense. So even if like mentally we're like, I'm good, I'm confident, I don't give a like shit, it's there's a piece in the body and I feel that. I remember not even that long ago. Like this was probably in September or October of last year of 2024. I was living with a woman in North Carolina and she started dating this new guy. And she was like talking to him about her cycle and like telling him about how she likes to rest on her period. And she was like, "Oh, here's my roommate's Instagram and you can like learn more about this." And she asked him like, "Oh, well, what did you think of her Instagram?" And this is so funny to talk about. And I guess he told her, like, oh, yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know about the war paint, though. And she told me he said that. And at first I kind of like laughed it off, but it kind of actually hurt me a little bit. I had this like, oh no, well, what is he gonna think of me? And when I meet him, like my friend's boyfriend, like, is he gonna like his judge it just like started to affect me and it was so strange because for the most part I'm like you I'm like this is who I am, this is what I do, but it hit like a really weird chord in me that felt the only word I can use to describe it is like unsafe. Yeah.
yeah, well, I think there's this interesting thing too, and I think this is possibly what has happened to me over the last like 2 years is that like when I got into this work, I was living in Northern California. Like I said, I was like living on farms, like out in the middle of nowhere. Like I was basically able to just like be naked all the time and feel completely free and comfortable and like,
uh,
live with a community of people and bleed right on the earth. And like these kind of like concepts and topics. Um, were very like settled in the people I was surrounding myself with, like consciousness. Like there was this like sort of understanding of like returning to our like true wild nature that is just like so connected to the earth, right? Like it's not like a sexual thing to be
Yeah.
outside and like enjoying the sun on every single part of your body. Like it's just like, no, this is like nourishment and this is like part of being human on earth is
Yes.
like remembering our earthly existence, you know? And that's
Yeah.
really what it's about. And like it's not about us being like um I don't know. It's not even about this thing of like trying to prove a point. It's like this is just like being human and like there's like medicine in our blood. Like there's things in our blood that are like healthy for our skin. Like there's beautiful things of being connected to our blood and being connected to like feeling safe in our bodies. You know, it's like don't we
Mhm.
all just want to feel safe in our bodies and we do that if we're like in communities of people that have the same level of understanding where we're like not going to be like sexualized or like scared of like being taken advantage if we're like exposing our full selves, you know? And so there's this level of safety in that. And but that's a small pocket of the world that is like operating like that. And I think since I like left California and came back to the East Coast and like that's just like no, I don't know any space over here that's like accessible and people are like chill about that. Like whereas
Yeah.
over there it's just like that was seriously just like very normal and like no one's like
True.
questioning it or thinking like there's really anything strange about it or that you're being like showy or like you know, it's just like we're all just like living here, you know?
So true. Yeah, so true. California is kind of unique in that way.
Yeah, like we're
Um,
just like being humans and like this is what it feels like to be human, you know? Like I got so used to like showering in the river and just like
yep.
going to the bathroom outside because like
Yep.
I'm living in like large expanses of wild nature and that's just what felt like
Mhm.
natural and healthy to me, really, you know? It's like that lifestyle felt healthy. And it's just not accessible here and it's like it's seen as like strange when really it's like the
Yeah.
whole thing about it is it's just like about being healthy and being like in rhythm with our bodies and with the cycles of the earth and letting ourselves be grounded and like receiving nourishment from the elements, you know, and like letting our bodies like um not be like blocked up and like I don't know. So it's this funny
Yeah.
thing where it's like, oh, once I see remember like what the that the whole rest of the world isn't operating in that way. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna like close down a little bit more because everyone's gonna think I'm a freak. No.
No, I mean, there's so much truth to what you're saying. And what it reminds me of is like the affirmation I often have to give myself with like all this stuff that I do that maybe people in the like overculture think is weird. Is like this is pure. Like me putting my blood
Yeah,
on my face is pure. It is not like this weird, dirty thing that I'm doing to like be different and be triggering. I'm
right.
not trying to be triggering. I'm just like doing what feels natural and healthy to me. And unfortunately, our culture at large is is the weird culture, and like not living in like right relationship with what it means to be in a human body and to
Right.
have peace with that human body. And so
Right.
but it is challenging, to be in that culture and to want to like be able to relate to people while also wanting to be healthy in your body. So I think it's such an interesting conversation around like how we can do that. Yeah,
Yeah, like how do we integrate? How do we like take this like really deep knowing and understanding of like, yeah, what feels right for us to like be like how to like walk and be with our
yeah,
bodies in
yeah,
the way that feels right and the way that feels most supportive to us and to the earth, you know, and like we didn't even touch on like the importance and value on every level of like offering our blood to the earth, you know, but like how do we embody that part
yeah,
that like that life that feels so true while also like trying to exist in this world, you know, it's like we have to like there has to be some kind of give and take. And like, yeah, there's days that I think it's like we're just like, whatever, like I'm just gonna scream from the rooftops. I don't care what
Mhm.
anyone thinks. Like this is who I am, and this is what seems like we like catch up everyone, you know, like remember. And then there's times where it's like, nah, we gotta like work together here, you know, like
Yeah.
do we have to like share these things and embody these things in a way that it's gonna be receptive, you know?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think that like allowing it to be relatable and receptive is an important aspect. And also I think like we need to be secure in ourselves when we're sharing. Like if we're feeling like I
Yeah.
want to share, I feel shame around this right now, it's not the time to share. Our system doesn't feel
Yeah.
safe. It's not, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe there's something there, you know, like digging
Yeah.
a little bit deeper into like, oh, okay, where is that coming from? And then there's like probably something there, you know, to like there's some kind of teaching there, you know.
Yeah. Gosh, I could just talk about this stuff with you all day. But we're getting close to our time. So I want to ask you first I want to ask if there's anything else about your story that feels pertinent to share before I ask you the final question.
Mm. I don't know. There's nothing coming off the top of my head, I think, at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just been flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last question I love to ask is for you to just leave whatever piece of womb wisdom that wants to come through for the women listening. So any little nugget that feels true to you right now.
Hmm. Oh, I don't even know how to word this, but I think like I maybe I'll just share a little bit of like what I've been experiencing with this pregnancy and um
Mhm.
you know, I was speaking earlier about how like whenever I cycle, like I'm just kind of like in awe of the wisdom and like this just like divine intelligence of our bodies to show us like our stuff and to like help keep us in check and like also like surprise us. Like I just feel like the womb just like continues surprising us with like things we couldn't see but have been there the whole time or something. It's like
Mhm. Yeah.
the more that we like listen in, and it's amazing. It's like this like infinite wellspring of knowledge and information just like right in our bodies when we just like pay attention to like yeah, how it's all making us feel and what's happening in our bodies and just as we witness the cycles. But um yeah, I found out that I'm having a girl last week and that has just been like so I didn't think I was going to be someone to find out like the gender, but
Yeah.
we did it and it was just like very exciting and um I'm so happy that I'm having a girl and I'm just like I don't know, now I just feel a little bit more, I don't know, I feel more connected to her spirit or something. Like I know like who's coming and I feel this like continued thread of like doing this work for her, you know,
Uh,
and also seeing that um like I was speaking to at the beginning of the podcast, like how all of this transformation that's happening in my life, I feel is like she is initiating this and she's like, you have to clear this stuff out of the way before I come because I'm not carrying this on, you know? And so just like this access that we have in our bodies to like clearing some of this lineage stuff that we've been speaking to, you know, whether it's our own lineage or just like the collective like ancestral pain, you know, and I think it's important to always acknowledge when we think of those things, like there's so many blessings we receive from our ancestors, and there's also a lot of pain and wounding there.
mhm.
And yeah, this access that we have through our connection to our womb to like change some of these patterns. And I think a huge piece that the womb has taught me is this piece of like trust and surrender to the mystery. And so, right, like we've been sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, like why the whole world is like they're all confused about like what it means to live in a body here on earth and like everyone's like got it wrong and they're like slathering like chemicals and plastic all over their bodies and like
Yeah.
the earth is dying, you know, and it's like these reflections of our bodies in the earth. And I think something that the womb has really showed me is like, yeah, just like trust in the timing of the things. So, like it's all going to unfold and like in perfect timing. And I think that like the more we can kind of surrender to that, like she offers us like so much grace where it's like, I don't know, time is a funny thing. Sometimes there's these wounds inside of us that seem like so deep and so big. And then before you know it, like we are a different person and we're carrying ourselves in truly different ways. And like so much growth and healing like is available to us. And I think the more that we um listen to, you know, what the womb has to offer through all of these different practices that we've been talking about in this episode of just like and just paying attention to your cycle and like looking at these stories of your life of like what is the story of your menarche, what is the story of your sexuality, what is the story of your relationship to your body, like all of these aspects of like foundations of who we are as women like give us so much information and it's really just about like listening and observing and like looking at those stories and like what happened, what unfolded, how did I handle it, and like who is the woman that I'm becoming, you know, also kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation of like letting that next version of yourself kind of like carry you forward of like what would she do, you know, and like that is how we can kind of like transform and transmute these things that our womb is holding. So that was like a really big answer and tangent and like but
I love
there's just
it.
so much there. There's so much there and um yeah.
No, so beautiful. I loved hearing all that, and I'm so excited that you're having a girl. And I think these babies coming in, they want us to do healing so that they can come in and just like go for it, you know. I actually
Mhm.
had the first time I connected with the spirit baby in a plant medicine ceremony 4 years ago. My spirit baby came through, and at first I thought her message was like, I'm here to do the healing. And then later on, like in a meditation or something, I received another message from her. And she was like, no, 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 you do the healing so I can come here and be healed.
That's hilarious. You're like,
I
oh.
know. I was like, oh, gotcha. Okay.
Like, no, you do that for me. I'm in
Yeah.
charge here.
Yeah. I love everything you said. And it's so true. It's so true. Thank you so much for being here, Emma. I would love to give you an opportunity to just share where women can find you. And I know it's kind of in flux of like your offerings right now, but whatever you want to share in regards to that is open.
Mhm. Yeah, so you can follow me at Guided by Love on Instagram, and I also have a podcast called Weaving Harmony. So you can check out some of my episodes there. And yeah, I'm feeling some things in the work of like some new offerings coming out, but I haven't started yet. So you can follow me there. I have a website also, emmamyers.love, and you can get on my email list there, and I keep people updated through that way as well. And you can kind of see some of the stuff I offer on my website too. If you're in person, we can do body work, and if you're in Maryland or Pennsylvania.
Cool. All right, love. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been so sweet getting to hear your stories and connect with you more deeply. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you for tuning into the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it could reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle, in the show notes below. There, you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions, shop the herbal shop, and any group programs that I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.